أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين ما شاء الله لا قوة إلا بالله. It's my pleasure to welcome you all in our bookshop, Suba Bookshop. Alhamdulillah, you may recall after the inauguration of Suba Bookshop back in 2019, I made a promise to people of the Gambia. And the promise was this. My company was established to empower Gambian writers, not to only publish their books and make it available in the Gambia, also to ensure that it become available worldwide. And that is why I think, without exaggeration, my company is the first publishing company in the Gambia which will publish books, and we want to make sure they are available online. So every single book that we have published so far, they are widely accessible and affordable online. So that was promise number one. Promise number two, I promised that I will publish at least 5 or 6 titles by different Gambian. And Suwakunda Publishing will shoulder the burden of the cost. Let's say free of charge. We mean business. We are serious in our promise. And alhamdulillah. So far we have published books by different Gambian writers. We started with Uncle Nanake Johnson's book, Max the Cat. That was the first book that we published. All right, that's this one. Then from there we published book by Jenaba Danso. Also we published book by Ismaila Sedba. Also by Dr. Francis Sad. Also by Isaba. And also by P. Fofana. Young Gambian writers. They call themselves Writer Space Africa Gambian Chapter. And also finally by Ahmad Shaw. So over the first 5 years, we published these books. And we want to make sure that these books are widely available at the international market. So that is why London Book Fair is the platform where you can access international market. Now, you may wonder why London Book Fair. I have a very positive experience in 2018. That was the first time I exhibited my books at London Book Fair. But what I realized at that particular book fair, 99% of the companies, people who are exhibiting, they were exhibiting as companies, not as individuals. So this is one thing I learned from that book fair in 2018. So then, I wondered, what can I do to improve the way I operate? So this is when the idea of Suwakunda Publishing came. As you can see here, Suwakunda Publishing. Okay? People say, why Suwakunda? Suwakunda stands for Sudukum Barokunda. Su stands for Sudukung, B stands for Barokunda, then Kunda stands for Kung, D stands for Da, Barokunda. Because my father came from Sudukung, my mother from Barokunda. So we call this Subakunda. That's why I named the company after my 2 villages, Barokunda and Sudukung. All right? Now, so when we established this company, it was a big thing in the Gambia. We have a professional publishing company, which will publish books to international standard. In terms of printing quality, in terms of editing, in terms of publicity and everything. And alhamdulillah, it was never an easy journey, but alhamdulillah, we managed to at least, keep my promise, by empowering Gambian writers. Now, London Book Fair, after my experience, realizing that in order to make impact in this kind of event, I need a company, so we established Subakunda Publishing. So over the past 5 years, I did exhibition in the Gambia. And the first exhibition we did was last year, 2022, when we participated at the GCCI Trade Fair. So it was a big thing. So many Gambians came, through our trade fair, we interact. We have interacted with our leaders. I think, it was the first time most people see a bookshop exhibiting at a trade fair. So we have a very positive response. And, our sale was very good. So this year also, it has just been concluded. They launched the program on the 18th and it's finished on the 19th of this month. Alhamdulillah. So we have the same positive experience. And now we are preparing to exhibit at London Book Fair. London Book Fair will start from the 18th to 20 April next month. So at London Book Fair, I expect 4 outcomes. Number one, I'm looking for an opportunity for international translators, people who would like to translate my book into Arabic, into French, into Chinese, into Hindu, and all these things. So London Book Fair is the platform where you can access those people, because it's the place where people share ideas in those kind of areas. Number one. Number two, it's going to give me and the other authors an opportunity for people to give you a contract to write on particular subject. Because as you may know, this is not very popular in the Gambia, but in the West, the moment you publish a book, you will see institutions, sometimes individual, who will become like a patron to you. They will propose, for you to write in particular subject. Okay, so London Book Fair is one of the avenue where you can interact with those kind of people. That's number 2. Number 3 also is a book distributors, because it's a big market. The reason why the London Book Fair is one of the popular book fair, it is UK, it's one of the fewest countries where you don't pay tax on books. Books are tax-free. There's no even VAT on books. Okay, so that's why it's very, very popular. So we are expecting to achieve things like this as well, So number 4, the 4th thing that I expect to achieve at this book fair is like right. You see, traditional publishing companies like Random House, like other companies, Colin and Macaulay, things like that. So these big publishing houses, they use London Book Fair as an opportunity to leverage with small companies like me, especially companies that emerging in Africa. Africa is one of the emerging markets because our book market, though it's a small market, but it grows at least 6% per annum. Our current, I think the value of our current book market is around $1 billion, which is very small compared to UK, around £6 billion. Or if you compare to India, around £3 billion. So, so that's a big difference. But our market is one of the emerging markets. And the reason why Africa is the emerging market for books, because for the first time in the history, African diaspora, and most people living in the West, they want to hear the stories from the horse on mouth. All right? So people prefer to read African stories by African writers. So that is why Africa is one of the emerging markets now. So this is one of the reasons why it's important to exhibit books authored by African at London, especially Gambian. Because Gambian has been writing over the past almost 60, 70 years. All right? But there's no gap. There's nobody building this gap between writers and the readers. That is why Suwakunda Publishing came through my leadership to ensure that we build this village. So as you can see, all these books are going to be at London Book Fair. We're going to be exhibiting them. At least, you will see 10 copies of this in our bookshelf. All these books. So in addition to that, not only the books that we have published by my company, but also other books authored by different Gambian writers. So I will do my best as much as I can to, exhibit books authored by Gambian, but by also different companies. So because I think it's going to be an opportunity for all of us to market our ideas. Now, you may wonder, why London Book Fair alone? Why don't you target other markets in Africa? Why don't you target market in Asia and all these things? So after London Book Fair, immediately, in October, it's going to be a Frankfurt Book Fair, which is even bigger than London Book Fair. Though it's not the populous, but it's the biggest. Because at Frankfurt, you have at least 300 visitors. 300,000 visitors will come every year. And you have around 70,000 exhibitors. But, the reason why Frankfurt, we're going to target Frankfurt market is quite accessible to people in China. For some reason, I don't really know. But, Chinese, book distributors and also, in distributors in East Africa and Central Africa, they are very keen in making deals at Frankfurt Book Fair than London Book Fair. So this is why we're going to target that as well. And finally, before the end of the year, is part of our plan to also exhibit at Sharjah Book Fair in Dubai in November. So that's going to be towards the end of the year. All right. So this is what I want to talk to the media about. And also, if I can just conclude with invitation that I have from the University of the Cambridge. So I've been invited to be among the panelists of their forthcoming conference. They call this Cambridge Africa Together Conference. So I think, this is going to be the 10-year anniversary. So in this conference, we expect to discuss with audience 4 issues. Number 1, business opportunities that are available in Africa. Because as you know, in addition to my publishing, I also give training about entrepreneurship. I've been doing this almost 2 years now. And I have done a research which is very extensive to look at our market. What are the opportunities in Africa? For example, in the areas of commercial agriculture, in the area of construction, and you name it, just name a few. All right, so these are some of the things that we're going to discuss with the audience, number 1. Number 2, we're also going to look around the leadership. Because, most people think that, one of the problems that we have in Africa is bad leadership, which I disagree. We do not have what you call bad leadership in Africa. There is no such a thing. We have leaders who are very weak, okay? Because, the way the international system is set, it put Africa in a very funny position. If you may recall, we have been the victims of slavery for hundreds of years. Then after slavery, immediately you have colonial system. So all these things, has robbed Africa, of, human capital, of so many things. So when you have independence, it's like, our founding fathers have to build from scratch. They don't have, the manpower. They don't have intellectuals and all these things. So, then, so many of these independent countries become the victims of military coup and all these things. So the progress, is a little bit slow. And one government after the other, they will, I don't know how you call this, they will, vilify the previous regime has corrupted people, or let's say rapists or whatever, all these things. So, you don't have people with experience working in Africa for Africans. So it's like, our government has to rely on outsiders for development. So how can you rely on somebody that you are competing? How can you rely on your competitor? How do you expect that person to give you the best advice? That's where the problem is happening, through the institutions. So this is what makes our leaders very weak, but it's not bad leaders. So we need to discuss this, at our level at least, because the conference will attract young Africans studied at Cambridge and also other fields. So number 3, we want to discuss around the issues about innovation. Because as you know, science is very under, it's under resourced in Africa. People are not putting resources in science. People do not invest in science. So this is where we are lagging behind. Last time I did a research, I think, out of every 10,000 people in Africa, you have only 2 or 3 scientists. Compared to, places like America, out of every 5,000 people, at least 400 scientists. In South Korea, out of every 1,000, at least 200 are scientists. So how can you compete with people like this? Without science, there will be no innovation in Africa. You need science to invent. So these are some of the things that we're going to cover in this conference. And finally, we'll look around creativity. Because if you study Africa, we are consumers. We don't produce knowledge. We don't produce goods. But we enjoy, importing all these things. We import food into Africa and all these things, even knowledge. So there's a need for Africans to discuss these things, not only in Africa, but with the African diaspora. So these are things that we're going to discuss in the conference. The conference will start from the 12th to the 14th of May, inshallah. So I wish that everything is going to go as planned, inshallah. And I need your blessings as well. Because in all these things, we are very ambitious in our project. I have a very good team behind me to ensure, we achieve our goals. But with all these things, of course, you need prayer. You need blessings and all these things. So in this holy month of Ramadan, we seek prayer from everybody, and we need your blessings, inshallah.
This is the second time you're participating in
London Book Fair, yes. This is going to be the second time, but it's the first time that I'm going to participate representing the Republic of the Gambia. Because when you're going to exhibit at London Book Fair, there are rules. Number 1 rule is this, they want to know where are you coming from. Are you coming from Europe or America or Asia or Arabia? Or are you coming from Africa? So you have to indicate where you're coming from. Though my company is registered both in the Gambia and the UK, but this time around, I'm going to be exhibiting as a book exhibitor from the Republic of the Gambia. So I'm going to be representing Gambia, which is very big, absolutely. Because it's going to bring Gambia to the level of international community in terms of literature. First time in the history, book readers, publishers, book agents, filmmakers, they will see, books authored by Gambian writers. They will read ideas produced by Gambian writers. It's a big thing. Because, 2018, when I have exhibited, when I have participated, I have been there as a self-publisher. I've been there as an independent person. I do not represent a country. But this time around, I'm going to be representing the Republic of the Gambia. So it's a big milestone for our publishing industry. It's just entirely up to the publisher. So you can do your own selections. For example, you can exhibit this year, maybe story books, or let's say biographies, or let's say philosophy books. So, but in our case, every single book that I have published so far over the past 5 years, I will exhibit at this book exhibition. Every single of them. So, though there are other books authored by different writers, but they have been published by different publishing companies. All right? So they have different arrangement in terms of copyright. let's say, you know, if I may give an example, I have a book authored by Dr. Sridharami, okay? And as you know, if you write a book, whether you publish by yourself or by publishing company, copyright is entirely belong to the person who published that book. So if there's going to be any negotiation around this book by other companies to republish this book, they have to go through the author, not through the publisher. So, but in our case, though copyright is belong to the authors, but like I'm the middleman, I can negotiate on their behalf because it's my company who published these books. So that is why I'm very keen just to start with books published by Suwakunda Publishing Force. These are my primary objective because I have a room where I can negotiate on their behalf. Because in our contract, we spell it out there. Copyrights belong to the author, but we can also negotiate on their behalf. So that is why I have selected these books, and these are the books that we're going to be exhibiting. But as I said to you, not only this, I will carry other books, other story books, because in Europe at the moment, people are very keen about stories from Africa by African authors. If you write a book about poetry, these are not very popular in Europe at the moment. If you write a book about corruption in Africa, people don't want to know. If people want to know about corruption, they will check IMF website, what is talking about Africa, World Bank, Freedom House, Transparency International. They don't need you, the author, to say this. These are very unpopular books. So one of the most popular books in Europe, based on my research, are African stories, African, these fairy tales, folklore. These are very, very popular. For example, one of these books, Than You, a Miracle Child, is my own book. So this book is a very, very, very interesting book. There are a lot of stories. It's mixed. Some are African stories, some are, international stories. But people love to read books like this. So they also love spiritual books, African spiritual books. For example, what kind of God do we used to worship before Islam in Africa or before Christianity? So these are kind of mysteries people want to learn. They want to know, what do we do in our past? Because Africans are very spiritual people. But now, as you can see, our continent has been dominated by Christianity and Islam. So in the expense of our own spiritual history. So people are very keen to know the origin of African spirituality, how they used to worship, why people used to do like bush worship and all these things. So if there's number three, the number three type of books that people like in the West is the books of biography of well-accomplished Africans. People like Sadala Kairaba, Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Touré, people like that. So there are so many people in Europe, especially in people from Caribbean countries, who are very keen to learn African heroes. Who are these people? How they have achieved what they have achieved and all these things. So inshallah, so we're going to select in these books, among these books, so in these three categories, I will add those because they are more marketable than other ones. In those days, I have only 4 titles: Marriage and Society, How to Build the Gambia, Why Do Good People Suffer, and The Power of Positive Imagination. That was back in 2018. Those were the only 4 books I have exhibited at London Book Fair. My expectation is very huge, absolutely. Because I know one thing is guaranteed, the book fair is going to be one of the most successful book fairs so far. Because London Book Fair, as I said to you, is one of the popular book fairs. But due to COVID-19, they scaled it down a little bit. It was virtual in 2020 and 2021. But last year, it become, the usual status where you have interaction with publics. So this year, so many people are coming. Because if you just check their website, as an exhibitor, I access to a different platform where you can see those who have intention to attend. You can see the people expressing their intention. So many people are coming. This time around, there are 2 big expectations I have. One of them is to have an opportunity to translate some of these books into foreign language other than English, let's say Arabic, or maybe French, Chinese, Hindu, and things like that. That's one of the expectations I have. Because majority of people that have contacted me so far, these are the things that they are talking about. But I will meet them, we're going to negotiate. If they're going to do this, how they're going to do this. That's number 1. Number 2 thing that I expect from this book fair is film. Like some of these books you can turn into film. So authors never make money from book until it becomes film. When they turn your book into a film, this is when you say, oh, wow. This is when you're going to start earning a proper living for your writing. So these are the two things. Because, almost at the moment, 80% of people that contacted me, these are the areas that they're looking at. They want to see if it's possible, some of these books, for example, this Danju, A Miracle Child. This one is a very good book that you can turn into a film. Also with this one also is something that you can turn into a film, and also this one, by Rohi Fofana. So these are all books that, based on love. And they are quite touching, they are very touching. Because when you read them, you can relate yourself to the story. So hopefully, though, if I have an opportunity to turn these books into film, that will be a huge success for me. These are the two biggest expectations I have. The way that we connect with booksellers, because it is the platform where book distributors will come. They will look at books. They look few things. If just to determine this book is a very good book, they will look at the quality of the printing. That's number one. Number two, they look at because they know that we are not native English speakers. English is our fourth language. So they look at your language. They want to know this is reasonably, something that you can sell to other people. Because we speak different English in Africa and Europe and all that. So they look at these things. So far, so good. So therefore, there were two book sellers in UK whom I'm currently working with. One of them called Zamzam Bookshop, Upton Park, East London, Zamzam. The Islamic books and all that. So you have all the books available in the bookshop. Number two is a bookshop owned by a Jamaican called Papa Kai. So that's in Tottenham. These are the two major partners I have in UK at the moment. So I have other partners in Australia, like Gile Book. But our partnership is based on print on demand. Print on demand. So when people want to African books, they contact me, I send them. So that one, and also there's a open, they call this, open door bookshop in New Zealand. So I have an agreement with them also. It's print on demand. If people are looking for African books, they will contact me and I supply them. But this time around, hopefully, I have people from Pakistan who are very keen to make sure that Gambian books become available in Pakistan market. Somebody also contacted me from China, Guangzhou. So they want to make sure that if everything went very well, maybe we can translate some of our books into Chinese. They can make this available in China. So also in Caribbean, I have a contact in Caribbean, places like Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, all those areas. There are people who express interest. They want to work with us to ensure that we get our books in Caribbean as well. Because there are so many readers in Caribbean. Caribbean, they read a lot. But they hardly find books authored by African writers. They read stories by other people. They read African stories by other writers, like European writers, American writers, but not by African writers. So this is where we're making improvement. That's why African book market is growing about 6%. Because of the demand of African books by African writers. Yeah, inshallah.